We're going to use, the way that we're going to run today's session is I'm going to break it into a couple of different groups. So I have 3 speakers that going to talk about what is ICP-2. So for the benefit of those of you who probably didn't have enough time to look up on that, they're going to share with you from their views. And we're going to look at the history of ICP-2.
Hi, my name is Akinori Maemura from Japan Network Information Center, APNIC. We found that the recognition criteria with which APNIC and APNIC was established. And then the biggest problem is we set the criteria to recognize a new RIL. For example, we have the criteria of the broad support by the ISPs, and then their capability for the technical capability and imparity or such kind of thing. But one thing we forgot to put was how to maintain the functionality of the new RIRs, and then if failing, how we can fix that. So that is largely what we were doing in the ICP-2 revision discussion.
So I want to introduce Oscar. Oscar, you ready to join us? As I said, Oscar is maybe looking from the NRO perspective as the CEO from APNIC, but I'm sure that you have more to share with us in these important topics. Thank you.
I don't want to focus too much on the original version of the ICP-2, but it is important to mention that the goal in that moment was to identify success. In that time, we needed to know when a regional project, deserved to be granted the RIR recognition or as a regional internet registry. To that extent, I believe that the ICP-2 provides clear requirements for the accreditation of new regional internet registries. But today, we're looking for an additional criteria. Today, we're looking for one way to identify a failure. But we want to know how the different regions, how different organizations perceive failure.
Here, welcome Kim Davis. Right? Kim is the VP for IANA and with ICANN, so he sees things from a very more of a global view.
When I start thinking about ICP-2, I think first about the context in which it was created. ICP-2 was one of the very first documents that came out of ICANN as a body. It was at the very beginning of ICANN's existence in those first few years. The name itself is actually reflective of this. There are other ICPs, ICP-1, ICP-3, and it was really an attempt to sort of capture a lot of the fundamental rules around how our industry is structured. But in this case, it's well documented. So there was an MOU, as we heard, between the 3 RIRs back then and ICANN. Part of that MOU was to establish what is now the ASO. But that MOU established a basis to create a new policy for the recognition of regional internet registries. And that is what the ICP-2 document sought to be. It was really, I think, very important for a reason we're all familiar with, which is laid the foundation for the establishment of 2 new regional internet registries. Without ICP-2, we wouldn't necessarily have APNIC or LACNIC being established. This was the procedural document which allowed for the creation of those 2 organizations and the recognition of them as RIRs. The community has a lot of input into how those documents can evolve to reflect the current needs and current requirements without necessarily changing those core principles that were captured so long ago. It's really crucial to get wide engagement with the community as we look at revising these documents. But it's crucial that these documents don't just come out as the products of the authors themselves, but the community really engages on this topic, studies these documents carefully, provides contributions to these documents, provides feedback, are these documents on point or not? Because it's through that activity and through ensuring that there is a wide range of oversight and review of these documents that they will ultimately have their legitimacy.
Mirjam Kun I would like to request how was ICP-2 developed from the point of view of the ASO AC?
I was indeed involved in the original version of the ICP-2 in a certain way, and also negotiating with ICANN and communicating with the two new RIRs at the time. However, since I'm in the history session of this, or history part of the session, I would actually bring us a bit more back, way back in history, and talk a bit more about the original motivation and background that then ultimately led to ICP-2 and to the criteria of for RIRs, because this was actually these criteria are a lot older than an ICP-2. The main regional the main idea of a regional distribution of internet numbers and resources, and the original principles for organizations that could fulfill such a service were actually written down in October 1992 as RFC 1366, which is called the Guidelines for Management of IP Addresses. And at the time, it was recognized that with the growth of the internet and the increased need for IP addresses and AS numbers, it wasn't feasible and scalable anymore, that this was done by a central authority, which was basically John Postel at the time. So then RFC 1366 was updated a number of times over the years, became 1466, 2050, and I think now the latest number is 7020. And so the principles kind of have been carried over from document to document. And I think as some other speakers mentioned, they are still very much valid today. And it's expected that they will still be valid, with the review of ICP-2, and that they'll be carried over, and that the track record and the history that is behind all this, the motivation that's behind all this, will be continue to be recognized.
Next to Paul, Tommy, how did ICANN understood the ICP-2 effort at the time when you are SHU?
And one of the key things about that, if you look over the last 200 years, about the building of institutions, is the normal process. The process of success is where there becomes a consensus around sets of principles amongst a community, which then get expressed into some form of instruments around which then some operation takes place. The revision of instruments often changes as the operations themselves change, but the core stone, the lodestone, is the consensus around principles that takes place at the beginning. And if you were to look at any of the successful institutions in the world, in any aspects of how we work, that tends to be the common model. There were a lot of conversations that took place before the formation of ICANN, before even the Green Paper from the United States government, about success and failure. Numerous people who were in the United States Department of Commerce, who saw themselves as being the overseers of the IANA functions as the backstop, always saw that within that function there is a reserve power, and that reserve power was to do with failure. Right? If there is failure, we can take something back. This is not new. We're not rewriting, we're not starting something from scratch. We are looking at the amendment and moulding of a process that we started 25 or 30 years ago, in which there is a consensus which allows for the sort of tweaking and changing we're talking about now.
We have another speaker, Raul Ichibrian. I know him from ISOC. So, Raul, how was ICP-2 useful for the creation of APNIC?
ICANN was created in 1998. A few months later, we arrived in the third ICANN meeting in Santiago. I refer to the group that was working at the time in trying to form an RIR for Latin America and the Caribbean. And we presented a letter to ICANN board saying, we are here and we want to create an RIR. We were creating an issue because the other RIRs had been created before the existence of ICANN. Say, okay, we have to do something. How we will recognize, yes or not, this RIR? It was very interesting because we had to demonstrate basically three things. That there was a need to create an RIR in the region, that we were the right people to do that, and that we had the support of the community. And so finally, we had a guideline. I don't know how we could have done that without the guideline of the ICP-2. And I think that it was very useful also for APNIC later, because we were able to share our experience once we completed the work.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Zhang. Currently, I'm the NRO NC appointed by APNIC EC and also serve as the co-vice chair of ASO AC. We have learned lots about the history and importance about the ICP and ICP-2. So I think let me start with the role of ASO AC and NRO NC. I think maybe you have already known that ASO and the NRO are two separate bodies while they are closely linked. Both of them each have distinct responsibility. The NRO NC serve as ASO AC within the ICANN structure. So it is very important to bridge the relationship between RIRs and ICANN. Let me explain a little bit more. The ASO AC, the ASO is one of the 3 supporting organizations called for in ICANN bylaws. The ASO's purpose is to review and develop the recommendation on IP address policy and to advise the ICANN board on policy issue relating the operation, assignment, and management of IP address. So the functions include overseeing the global PTP and advise ICANN board, and also appointed ICANN board members on number 9 and number 10, 2 seats, and also appoint member to ICANN NOMCOM. The ASO was established in 1999, as our speakers has mentioned, as per the ICANN ASO MOU between ICANN and the RIRs. In October 2023, as Oscar has mentioned, the NRO EC sought the ASO AC's assistance with the 2 texts that should help strengthen the function of RIR system. First, review draft ICP-2 implementation procedures. Second, strengthen ICP-2. So the ASO AC has started our works. So for the status for the time being, we have discussed about the core of principles as it described from different point of view, including ICANN's point of view, especially RR's point of view. So I think within the core of principles, we have discussed about the governance principles and the recognition and the RIR's ecosystem and all the life cycles and all the criteria of the established and the efficiency about the RIRs. So that is the status for the time being. That is my sharing about the ICP-2. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Ian Sheldon. I'm the Director of the Intergovernance team in the Australian Government Department of Infrastructure. We've heard a bit about the history, the importance, where the process is up to, but in the spirit of the Cooperation SIG, I wanted to use my slot to talk about cooperation, specifically with governments. I look around the room and I look across the venue, and I don't see many other governments here at this conversation. I know that governments will take a keen interest in the ICP-2 review process. Revisiting this decades-long process is going to be of keen interest to many governments, and they're going to need a little bit of assistance to get their heads around what this space is, what the importance is, and importantly, why they should care about and get involved in this review process. I don't want to preempt, and I certainly can't speak on behalf of many other governments, but I do know they will want to see an RIR system that's robust, that's resilient, that's flexible, and it's also responsive to governments. And all of this community here has a key role to play in helping governments understand a lot of these dynamics. If governments feel they are left out of this process, they'll be seeking other ways to share their thoughts and opinions, whether it's through strong language in a communique at ICANN, whether it's through other regulatory measures or whether it's through how they position themselves through things like the Global Digital Compact or the WSIS Plus Terrain Review that will be looking to take place this year and next. So please take the opportunity to reach out to your local governments, explain the process, explain opportunities for them to get involved, whether it's through some of those review processes, taking part in their local RIR community discussions, or getting involved in the broader work that might be happening at ICANN.
Hello everyone, I'm Dima, one of the ICANN ASO member from AP region. I would like to say something about the ICP-2 from a technical perspective, that is the RPKI. The ongoing worldwide RPKI deployment is bringing the IR function to a higher level of significance. As we all know, as a trust anchor CA in the RPKI hierarchy, the IR operator is playing a very important role in internet working system of the global internet. Nowadays, there is an increasing number of ISP, ICP, and CDN operators using the RPKI as an authoritative third party to validate routing information. And dysfunctioned or incompetent IR operator will lead to bring about network outage, probably. So, but it is far from easy task to operate RPK CA. An IR operator must ensure the stability of its cryptography system and the availability of the real-time information synchronization system. In short, today I have got two arguments. One is the ongoing RPK deployment worldwide makes our discussion here is inevitable. And the other is that we must take the RPK into account when we evaluate an incumbent IR operator or a candidate IR operator. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Bongradabay from Kiribati. I'm an APNIC fellow, and I just want to thank the panelists for the discussion about ICP. Very insightful, a lot of information. And my question is focused on the criteria set out. So I want to ask about the criteria that have been set out in the ICP-2. Do you see the criteria evolving given the recent changes and advancements? Like, what would this look like? I know you've mentioned that most of the criteria are still very relevant to today. So what would these look like? Would the criteria evolve?
Oscar, please.
Thank you. Yes, yes, of course. I believe that these criteria needs to evolve. I believe that there are many changes in the environment. There are many interests outside, and we have to be aware of that reality. So yes, this criteria needs to evolve. The requirements to do business in every region are increasingly difficult. You can hear the presentations from the RIRs. What are the different criteria established by the governments just to operate as a single organization? Don't even mention a regional internet registry. So yes, of course, it has to evolve. All these criteria needs to evolve considering all these circumstances.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jirayut Nidongkai, but you can call me Bang for short. I'm a fellow of APNIC 58 fellows. I'm from Laos, a small country and only landlocked country in Southeast Asia. So, as a young generation, I want to ask about the fostering cooperation between different generations, between older generation and young generation during the PDP or policy development process. So, I want to ask like how ICP-2 can balance between the experience of older generations and innovative idea of young generations to create more comprehensive policies.
A lot of the same people, as you heard in this presentation, who wrote some of these seminal documents in the 1990s, possibly even earlier, are the same people talking to you about it today, about what it feels like 25 years later. But it's important that these fundamental policies that we use, ICP-2 is just one of them, continue to service future generations. We want this, this multi-stakeholder governance model generally, the governance of RARs more specifically, to continue to service future generations. So to me, for processes like these to have legitimacy, it needs to not be the original authors alone coming back and saying, yes, this document still is fit for purpose, and it still does the job well. These processes precisely have to engage the next generation. It has to engage people outside of a fairly close-knit internet governance circle to make sure, to validate that these are still fit for purpose, that there are not new considerations that need to be made so that those adjustments can be made. So I think for this model to be successful, we do need to find ways to increase that engagement and ensure that broader participation.
On that last question about the next generation, I would remind us all on this panel that we were also those young kids coming into this with an older generation before us many years ago. And one of the things that you'll find as you come into this community is it is very open, but you need to be a little forceful yourself as that next generation, and you need to be vocal and be a little brave, and you'll find everybody welcoming. So yes, it's hard to come into a room with a bunch of old fuddy-duddies who've been around for a lot of time, but your new ideas were just like our new ideas 25, 30, 40 years ago, whenever it was we were getting involved. So you're going to be more than welcome in the discussion. I see Miriam also had a hand up on that issue, so I'd like to cede to her if she wants to talk to that very topic.
No, I wanted to actually add, and it fits very well with what John said, and also I totally agree with the previous speakers that it's very important to involve the younger generation, and a prerequisite and a foundation for this, of course, is the open policy development process that is actually implemented in all the regions, and that's really an important vehicle to get involved, and it needs to be open and transparent and accessible and well documented. And for instance, my task as the chair of the RIPE community is also to make it available and to make it understandable to newcomers in general. And I think this is actually written down as one of the criteria that this is necessary to have an open, bottom-up, transparent policy development process implemented in all the regions that everybody can participate in.
And thank you very, very much for our panelists. And thank you guys online. And with that, I'm going to close this session. Thank you very much.